right, peace. Hey, welcome back to the YouTube channel. This video is going to be a review of Lecrae's latest album, Church Clothes 4. And I gotta just say, it was a good album. It was a solid piece of work. I think Lecrae has done his best work on the Church Clothes mixtapes or album series, whatever one you want to call it. My favorite being Church Clothes 1 and Church Clothes 3. I think Church Clothes 1 came out like 2011, 2012, around that time. And I remember it was a mixtape. It was actually on defpiff.com. And it had a lot more songs than what's on like Apple Music and Tidal right now. But I thought that was very creative because I really thought that Lecrae was just really being himself. A lot of times in the music, I feel like he was hiding himself behind this kind of this veneer of what a Christian was supposed to be. And I think Church Clothes allowed him to really express himself the way that I think made him very happy. But throughout the albums and really throughout his life, I could see that he's still pretty conflicted just about different things in his life. One thing about being a Christian in regards to his ideologies have been kind of changing over the years, and I don't think necessarily his his spiritual reality, his spiritual perception has necessarily changed, but just his political and his political ideology combined with his racial identity. Because one thing I think it's very difficult for a so-called black man to embrace the reality that Christianity doesn't define him. Christianity in itself is a globalist religion trying to bring everybody together. But the so-called black man has problems that are very unique to himself and his situation and his people, both spiritually, mentally, and psychologically. And Christianity, just like Islam, has been used in our quote unquote communities to kind of help stabilize certain men and women, which I don't discount that at all. I think it definitely has stabilized a lot of our people, but it doesn't complete the whole picture. And I think Lecrae is starting to understand that now. I noticed that he said that in the last two songs of the album, Church Clothes 4. And I want to highlight one part in the second to last song called Journey, which is actually my favorite song on the album. I think when Lecrae is more on this more retrospective perspective where he tries to think about things in his life, I think that's his best. That's when he shines the most. And for those who don't know, I've been listening to Lecrae for a long time. I knew all his songs, or really all his albums, from like Real Talk to After the Music Stops to Rebel, um, then all the way up to Gravity and the Church Clothes tapes, to Anomaly. I think that's when I really stopped listening to Lecrae, like for real, for real. I kind of listened to Restoration. I wasn't really feeling that, and I came back to listening to this album, and I think that this is really Lecrae's ability to really just kind of be himself. He's really trying to understand things about the church that he maybe didn't really all the way fully embrace, and now he's learning to kind of chew the meat and spit out the bones. And I think for every so-called black man who embraces his spiritual aspect, he's learning to do that, where the church and the Bible have to be disparate from one another. The church system is not the same as the Bible. A lot of people do things in the church that the Bible doesn't recommend or um, agree with. But I'm gonna let Lecrae talk about this part of the album, and then I'm gonna just kind of speak on this a little bit.
This track. Lord still my shepherd, but now I guess I'm the black sheep. By the way, what happened in passion no longer bothers me. Look, I'm hated by my own people, but sitting silently. Though I let a lot of people down, but God was with me. Gotta forgive myself if I know that the Lord forgive me.
And for those who didn't hear it, he said, the Lord is still my shepherd. Right now, I feel like I'm the black sheep. Lecrae has been very in a lot of controversy over the past decade, I guess now, with his stance on the way his music is going. He didn't want to be called a Christian rapper. He just wanted to be called a rapper who's a Christian. And then also, uh, just his stances on the Christian hip hop scene. He was really kind of embracing different aspects of hip hop scene. He did songs for Waka Flocka and Paul Wall and B.O.B. And he was really the first so called Christian rapper really doing that. Besides, I guess Christian mainstream artists besides like Kirk Franklin. And he was really I don't know, he was on a really pioneering a new lane. And a lot of people didn't like that. They didn't like how he was kind of branching himself away from the Christian hip hop scene. And then but he made a lot of connections. But I could tell when he was doing that, it was almost like he was trying not to compromise his message, but at the same time showing that he's authentically this. And it's very difficult for someone to kind of play a character. That's why sometimes a lot of brothers feel like they playing a character. I think Lecrae was playing a character for a long time. Um, as the so-called Christian rapper who who knew a lot of theology but also came from the streets, and he was trying to really appease a lot of people, and he ended up kind of alienating people like some people I knew they didn't really mess with Lecrae. They thought he was too Christian, too churchy. They didn't really play him in the black church, or quote unquote black churches like that. But I just happened to know him based off my college friends who knew him. So I think Lecrae started to learn to just embrace who he was. And then the other line he mentioned I want to talk about, it was a conference, I believe, something like a conference. Lecrae was with this panel talking with I think the owner or the CEO of Chick-fil-A, and I was talking about it. Had a discussion on the lines of white privilege, and I think the Chick-fil-A CEO or the owner said that he didn't like the term white privilege. He rather call it white blessing. And it was very controversial because Lecrae, he didn't say anything to like uh, um, oppose it. He was just kind of like being very diplomatic, and he got criticized so much on Twitter. They're like, he was basically just complicit with that. And Lecrae, he put out a statement, whatever. But it really revealed a lot, because if you let the so-called Caucasian conservative or Caucasian Christian tell or just talk, they'll really admit that being slavery and the oppression of so-called black people is really their blessing, and that is true. I mean, that's not really anything that should be seen as something that's that controversial. I mean, once one there's in any historical culture, there's always been a caste system. There's always been someone at the top and someone at the bottom. And the so-called black man is at the bottom of this society. And that has allowed a lot of people to reap off the benefits. So as the so-called black men and women are suffering from their quote unquote curses, other people are benefiting from their blessings. So that's how the society is. And a lot of our people are so emotional because we've been indoctrinated with the philosophy of equality, that we think that we are supposed to troll the so-called white person into feeling sorry for our struggle and to giving us a piece of the pie that they built. When the so-called white man came from the caves of the Caucasus, he had to do what he did to conquer the world. He had to do whatever he did. He conquered, he pillaged, he murdered, he caused propaganda, he took women, and he dominated the world. And so what we have to do is dominate it back if we want to be seen as though that quote unquote chosen people. We have to show that sense of dominance, and so that sense of ownership. And first it starts in mentality. It starts in our mind. So so they crucified Lecrae, but I think he like I said, Lecrae was trying to play that role as the Christian, the quote unquote black Christian, also from the streets. And he started to understand that he couldn't really be that, and every so-called black man really can't be that. The one thing that I get on, liberalism and Democrats, but really the other side of conservatism and the Republican side is that it doesn't really allow the so-called black man to exist unless you're a fundamentalist Christian. You don't really exist as a racially identified as an individual. So as a so-called black man who embraces values of the Bible, they expect you to be a fundamentalist Christian. And when you show your identity, it's like, hey, no, I actually believe in the scriptures. I follow the Sabbath. I don't believe in these fake holidays. I follow the Most High God, and I embrace these feast days. I embrace my culture. They see you as some type of radical, so they need you to be in this box if you're going to be a quote unquote conservative or really have, these sensible views. Really, they call conservatism, but it's really just sensible ideologies to maintain a society. But if you're going to be a part of this group, you have to think like the group. So the so-called black man who's a independent self-thinker, he doesn't fit into that realm. And I think Lecrae is starting to understand as he seems like to embrace a more East Orthodox Christian viewpoint. So I think Lecrae is still searching. I think now he's probably going to be more, in tune with his, kind of the origins of Christianity. Hopefully, he finds the truth of the matter to what he's looking for. Um, I saw an Instagram post where he was celebrating the Passover. So, hopefully or at least he acknowledged the Passover. So hopefully he gets back into the roots, but there's a chance that Lecrae, he's in the music industry, he may be controlled, allegedly. I don't know, but overall the album was good. I think Lecrae still has a lot of talent. I hope all the best for the brother.